She's not your responsibility. Step back, sir. The voice was sharp, official, but laced with something colder mockery. He was kneeling in the rain, his hands covered in blood, applying pressure to a woman's abdomen. Her breaths were shallow. The street around them was cops blaring sirens, shattered glass, and the sharp tang of smoke lingering in the air. And yet the cops weren't focused on the bleeding victim. They were focused on him. A tall black man in a dark jacket, no badge, no authority, just a steady hand trying to keep a stranger alive. Two officers stood above him, one with his arms crossed, the other shaking his head with a smirk. "You trying to play medic, buddy? Let the pros handle it." They chuckled. One even took a step forward and nudged his knee with a boot. "You'll do more harm than good, man." He didn't flinch. Instead, he adjusted his pressure, checked her pulse, and whispered softly to the woman's ear, "Stay with me. Don't sleep yet." But they kept going. Phones came out. Onlookers film. Someone muttered, "He's gonna get tackled." Another voice, "This guy thinks he's in a movie." A drop of sweat rolled down his temple. Not from fear, from restraint. Because what he wanted to say, what he wanted to do. He swallowed. "Sir," a third cop said, louder now, "this is an active crime scene. You are interfering with a federal investigation." And just like that, the laughter got louder. "That's Rich. Interfering. What's he gonna do? Flash a made-up badge?" But he didn't reach for anything. He didn't raise his voice. He just turned his head slightly, looked at them calm, measured, and for the first time they hesitated. You ever seen someone get laughed at not because they were weak, but because the room had no idea what they were dealing with? You ever held your breath, knowing someone just insulted the wrong person and there'd be no rewind? Because right here, right now they thought he was just a civilian. And what happened next? Let's just say nobody at that scene would ever forget it. But first, let me ask you something. If you were trying to save someone's life and people in uniform laughed in your face, what would you do? Would you walk away quietly? Or would you make them regret it? Tell me in one word down below. Because the moment he stood up, that's when chaos began. And what he said next made the entire street go silent. He rose slowly, not with panic, not with anger, but with the kind of calm that makes people nervous. The officers watched him stand, still thinking they were in charge, still assuming he was bluffing. He glanced at the woman on the ground. Her breathing was fainter now. Her lips tinged blue. Time was slipping. Then, from inside his jacket, he pulled out a small, black device. Not a phone, not a weapon. It looked almost like a remote, sleek, matte, unlabeled. He pressed one button, then brought it to his ear. "This is Black Hawk Echo 9er, activating Protocol 7. Immediate clearance requested at 54th and Lincoln." The officers exchanged confused looks. "Who are you talking to, man? You can't just put that thing down." But he didn't even look at them. A voice answered in his earpiece, calm. "Female, robotic, confirmed. Identity code received. You are authorized. Stand by for override response." That's when the first sign came. The radios on every officer's belt cracklet then cut off entirely. Static. Silence. Then, "All units stand down. Command override in effect. Do not engage." One cop blinked. What the hell is going on? From the sky came the thump 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 of helicopter blades. Not news, not police. Military. Low. Close. Fast. A gust of wind slammed through the alley. Trash scattered. Hats flew. And the CEO? He simply stepped to the side and whispered to the injured woman again. "You're going to be okay. They're coming now." And then chaos. Unmarked black SUV screeched to a stop. Doors flew open. Men and women in full tactical gear poured out silent, efficient, eyes locked on him. One saluted, "Sir, we've secured the perimeter." Another knelt beside the woman, already starting advanced trauma care. The same cop who'd mocked him minutes earlier now stood frozen, mouth half open. Who are you?" He turned toward them. Finally, and for the first time, he spoke directly to the officers. "You saw a black man helping a bleeding woman and you laughed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. But the woman you ignored, she is a federal witness under protective custody. Your mistake nearly killed her. The youngest officer stumbled back a step. No one said a word. You ever been in a moment where the air just changed? Where a room that was full of noise suddenly dropped to dead silence back as everyone realized they'd messed with the wrong person. This was that moment. And let me ask you something. Do you think power always looks like power? Or can it sound like a whisper on a private channel alone that changes everything? If you've ever been underestimated for how you look, I want you to drop one word in the comments. Scene. Because what he did next made every officer there wish they had stayed silent from the start. And this was before they knew who he really was. He didn't wait for their apology. He didn't need it. The woman as stable as Zed was lifted onto a stretcher by the federal medics. Her fingers, once limp, curled slightly around the blanket. Mission secure. That's when the leader of the tactical unit stepped forward. Sir, do you want us to brief them? He shook his head. No need. But one of the younger cops couldn't hold it in anymore. Wait, how do you have command clearance? The CEO looked at him for a long moment. Then, almost like an afterthought, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a slim steel card holder. Inside was a matte black ID badge. No name. Just an insignia. A hawk. Wings folded. Under it, 3 letters burned into the metal like a brand. JTF. Joint Task Force. A special operations unit so secret, most people thought it was a myth. You were military? The officer asked, voice suddenly smaller. He gave a quiet nod. 15 years, special ops, then 7 years running risk intelligence for the department. But you don't wear a uniform? I don't need one, he said. There was no pride in his tone, only memory. And that's when the scene blurred not from special effects, but from what we all carry. Flashback, a sandstorm, a tent rattling in the wind. Inside, a soldier kneeling beside another man bleeding out. You're not gonna die today, Marcus, he'd whispered, hands trembling, radio hissing. But Marcus had been the one doing the saving. He was the calm, the man everyone turned to when things fell apart. Until the day it went wrong. A botched mission, a civilian casualty, headlines that didn't care about context. So he left, disillusioned, silent, not because he failed but because the system did. He built something else, a firm that didn't chase profit, but protected whistleblowers, exposed corruption, and kept vulnerable people alive when others just turned away. And yet today, even with all that behind him, all they saw was a black man kneeling in the street. You ever feel like no matter what you've done that people still just see what they want to see? Like your whole past could vanish behind a hoodie or the color of your skin? If you've been there, just type one word below. Still fighting, still rising, still here. Because in the next moment, one voice crackled through a secured radio line. Black Hawk Echo, your presence is requested. We have another situation. And what he said back would change everything about how they saw him. Even the agents. Before I tell you what he revealed in front of the entire street, I know you might be busy. Maybe your coffee's getting cold. Maybe this video is hitting you harder than you expected. But if stories like this story is about power, dignity, and what happens when people are forced to reveal who they really are matter to you, hit subscribe. You don't want to miss what happens next. Because the next 5 minutes, they flip the entire balance of the scene. The secured radio buzzed again. Echo Niner, requesting eyes on West Sector. A known device discovered near the courthouse. Potential coordinated event. He looked at the agent who'd handed him the earpiece. No coincidence, he muttered. Then louder, to the entire federal unit, protocol shift. I'll take lead. You should have seen their faces. Even the ones in tactical girth ones trained for worst-case scenario did. Because when someone like him steps up and says, I'm taking lead, it usually means something's already gone wrong. One of the SWAT officers from earlier, the same man who laughed at him, couldn't help but mutter, this guy gives orders like he's top brass. The CEO turned just slightly, just enough. Funny thing about command, he said. You don't get it by shouting. You get it by walking into the chaos and having people follow. He didn't raise his voice, but everyone heard. The agent closest to him nodded and activated her comms. Redirect all units to west. Black Hawk Echo is leading deployment. And just like the man they mocked 5 minutes ago, now held the lives of every officer in that zone in the palm of his hand. Still think people like him don't belong in charge. Still think power only looks like a pressed uniform and a badge. What does real leadership look like to you? Because that man, he had a choice to make next, and he was about to pick the option no one expected, one that would force him to face the very thing he walked away from years ago. But that wasn't even the worst part. He stood alone for a moment. The tactical team waited, the radios buzzed, the wind howled through the alley. But the weight in his chest was louder than any siren. He'd been here before. Not on the street, not with these faces, but in that same quiet just before hell opened. In Kandahar, he'd once called the wrong order based on bad intel. It wasn't his fault, but the detonation didn't care. The teammates never came home. And what did the brass say? Collateral. He remembered sitting in the debriefing tent, hands shaking, staring at the boots on his feet because no one else would look him in the eye. After that, he made a vow. Never give a command unless he was ready to carry every consequence. And now, the city held its breath. West Sector, Federal Alert, unknown device. Too familiar. He looked at the officers around him, some still avoiding his eyes, others frozen, unsure if they should salute. And then his gaze stopped. A girl, no older than 9, standing just outside the tape, holding her mother's hand, eyes wide. Not with fear but hope. She didn't see a threat. She saw someone doing something. That's when he knew. He couldn't walk away this time. He tapped his comm again. This is Black Hawk Echo. All teams regroup. Priority clearance to West Courthouse. Full response. The agents moved like clockwork. And the officers? They followed. Not because they had to. Because now they wanted to. Do you ever wonder if the hardest part of leadership isn't the responsibility, but the silence that follows every decision? Have you ever walked away from something you were born to do because it hurt too much to keep doing it? If you have, type 1 word below. Back, because that's what he just did. He came back, not for glory, not for headlines, but because someone had to carry the weight and he knew how. And just as they turned the corner toward the courthouse, your final call came through. But this one wasn't from command. It was from a voice he hadn't heard in years. And it stopped him cold. Echo 9, do you copy? He stopped mid-stride. The others kept moving, tactical boots pounding pavement, but he froze. Breath caught like a trap had sprung inside his chest. That voice, rougher now, a little slower, but unmistakable. Echo 9, this is Spectre 1. Confirm receipt. He hadn't heard the call sign in over 7 years. The last time he did, it ended in silence, smoke, and a body bag that never actually showed up. He tapped the earpiece. Say again. There was a pause. Then, it's me, Aaron. The world spun for just a second. Aaron was dead. He'd watched the footage himself. Ambush. Explosion. This cloud thick enough to bury a mountain. Aaron had been point man. He never made it out, or so they told him. He remembered the memorial, remembered calling Aaron's mother, remembered blaming himself every damn day since. Where the hell have you been? His voice was low, clipped, almost raw. Long story, Aaron said. I'll explain when we meet, but listen to go into West Courthouse. What? There's no bomb. That's not the real target. The call was a redirect, a trap. His pulse thudded. Aaron continued. Someone inside your current command chain flagged your name the moment Protocol 7 activated. They don't want you leading this op. They want to erase you. He looked ahead. The agents were already halfway down the block. If Aaron was right, they were walking straight into a setup. Why now? He whispered. Why show up today? You still don't get it, Aaron said. You were never supposed to leave the task force alive. His grip tightened on the comm. Jaw clenched, eyes narrowed. You ever feel your entire past come crashing into your present at the exact moment? You were trying to do the right thing. Have you ever questioned if the people giving you orders were just waiting for you to fall? If so, just drop one word below. Watch, because now he had two choices. Keep leading the team into what might be a death trap, or break protocol, pull them back and risk a federal mutiny. And that's where it gets terrifying. His thumb hovered over the channel switch. One word, and the entire operation would grind to a halt. But what if Aaron was wrong? What if this was real and delaying meant casualties? Then again, what if he wasn't? He looked up. The courthouse was just one block away. Teams had already fanned out. Streets were being sealed. The perimeter was tightening. But something felt wrong. No panic inside the building. No evac teams. To clean. To quiet. And that voice Sirens, it wasn't panicked. It was measured. Controlled. Like someone who knew. He gritted his teeth. Spectre, if you're lying to me. I'm not, Aaron replied. But you've got 60 seconds before the trap locks. He made the call. This is Echo Niner. Full halt. All teams freeze. Pull back the blocks. Do it now. Silence. Then resistance. Negative. Echo. A federal voice replied. We're mid-sweep. Courthouse clear so far. He cut in. This is a direct override. Priority risk protocol. I'm exercising command discretion. Another pause. Then, copy that. Pulling back. It had begun. You should have seen their faces. Even the seasoned agents blinked like they had just seen a ghost. The street buzzed with confusion, hands to earpieces, radios flaring, boots shifting direction. One junior officer blurted, "Wait, are we retreating?" Why? He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Because what would he even say? I'm not sure who I trust anymore. Or maybe I just chose instinct over orders. Have you ever made a call? That might save everyone, but also might destroy your reputation. Ever felt your gut scream left while the entire room marched right? If so, type one word below. Turn. Because that's what he did. And 30 seconds after the last man pulled back, an unmarked van pulled up outside the courthouse. No logos, no urgency. Just two men in suits who stepped out, looked around, and seemed surprised no one was there. Then one of them spoke into a secure phone. Echo Niner didn't bite. He pulled the team. What now? That's when it hit him. Aaron was right. And now, someone inside the government wanted him gone. And they weren't finished yet. The second he saw the van, everything clicked. Too quiet. Too composed. Too late to be real back, he panned way too early to be just passing through. He narrowed his eyes and zoomed in with a handheld optic from his vest. The man on the left, gray suit, no ID. The one on the right, something familiar. And then it hit him. Not from a name, not from a badge, but from a scar. Over the left eye, thin, surgical. He'd seen it before 7 years ago. Across a war table on a base that no longer exists on any map. Major Langford. Langford had been the one who insisted Aaron take point on the final sweep in Kandahar. Langford was also the one who disappeared from all records after the mission went south. And now he was here, looking around like he expected carnage and didn't get it. He tapped his comm. Aaron, Langford's alive. Dead silence. Then Aaron whispered, "Then you were right. This goes deeper than we thought. Where's he been all this time? I don't know. But if Langford's here, this isn't just a takedown, it's a cleanup." He watched as Langford spoke into the phone again. "Proceed with phase 2. Make sure Echo Niner doesn't leave the sector." And just like that, he knew. This wasn't about stopping him. It was about erasing him. Before he could reach something or someone, he turned to his team. "Double back. No sirens. No chatter. We go dark." One of the agents hesitated. "Where to?" "Headquarters," he said. "But not through the front. We take the access tunnels." Another voice, nervous. "You think they're coming after you now?" He met the man's eyes. "No, I think they always were." You ever realized someone had planned your downfall for years? Ever looked at a moment and thought maybe this didn't just happen, maybe this was designed? If so, drop one word below. Planned, because that's what this was. And if Langford thought he was still hunting a ghost from Kandahar, then he just made the biggest mistake of his life. Because ghosts don't hide forever. Sometimes they come back to finish the job. The access tunnel was pitch black, dust hung in the air like old secrets. They moved in silence, footsteps light, breaths shallow. Only the CEO's calm stayed active, feeding him encrypted pulses from Aaron. Langford's crew is mobilizing, Aaron whispered. They're trying to isolate your trail digitally. He nodded. Too late, because the real power wasn't just in guns or boots on the ground. It was in records, and he had one last ghost left to release. They reached the underground server bay, an abandoned communications hub from the Cold War era, long since decommissioned. But not by him. He'd left something here, a backdoor. He approached the terminal. Keys clacked. Old circuits buzzed to life. One agent glanced over his shoulder. What are we looking for? He didn't look up. A file they buried after Kandahar. He paused. Project Meridian. The room froze. Even the most seasoned agents turned pale. That name wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It was an off-the-books operation, part intel grab, part experiment. Aaron and the CEO had tried to expose it once. Then came the ambush. Langford disappeared. Aaron was declared dead. And him. He was pushed out. But he didn't forget. He typed fast. Override commands. Deep traces. Access chains no one was supposed to keep. And there it was. Folder. Meridian. Burn protocol. Class Zeta. He clicked. Footage. Logs. Orders. Transcripts. All proof of illegal detainment. False reports. Weaponized civilians. Names of agents used. Locations erased. Whistleblowers silenced. And at the top, Langford's signature. He uploaded one string of code into the encrypted net. A silent beacon. Then he looked at the agent beside him. Once this pings, every secure terminal across 3 agencies will light up. And if it does, he glanced toward the tunnel exit. Then Langford can't kill a ghost anymore. You ever hold a truth so dangerous the world would rather erase you than let it out? Have you ever wondered what they bury, just to keep their metals shiny? If you've ever felt like the truth cost too much to tell, drop one word below. Exposed. Because that's what he just did. He didn't pull a trigger. He didn't start a war. He just opened a file. And that might collapse everything. It took exactly 4 minutes. 4 minutes from the moment his upload hit the encrypted satellite net, for the system to snap back. At first, it was subtle. A flicker in the comms. A drop in signal bars. A GPS reroute that didn't make sense. Then came the broadcast. Breaking. Rogue federal contractor leaks classified intel, potential domestic terror link. He stared at the screen in the server room. There he was. Grainy photo. Cropped from years ago. Caption. Former operative turned saboteur. Below that, a fast-talking anchor. Authorities believe the man known as Echo Niner may have compromised national protocols. Officials urge caution. Do not approach. One of the agents beside him stepped back. Sir, are we burned? Another. They're calling you the threat. He didn't flinch. They would. He muttered. Truth doesn't scare them. Exposure does. Aaron's voice cracked through. They're wiping systems, even legacy files. Logs from Kandahar are vanishing in real time. They'll fail. He replied. I seeded backups in 3 continents. But he saw it. The fear, the hesitation, even in his own team. One agent whispered, what if they're right about you? He looked at the man not with anger, but something deeper. Exhaustion. You think I'd put my name, my life, your lives on the line for a lie? Silence. Then he stepped away from the terminal, voice low. This isn't about me anymore. They made this public. He pulled his jacket tight, slid the badge back into his chest holster. They want a ghost. I'll walk into the daylight. Have you ever been called a villain just for telling the truth? Have you ever watched people flint nip because they hate you, but because they fear what being near you might cost? If that's you, drop one word below. Truth. Because he walked out of that tunnel with no mask, no shadow, and no backup. Just the truth on his back, and a city now hunting him. And that was only the beginning. Rain started to fall as he stepped into the street. Not hard, just enough to blur the neon. Soften the edges of a city suddenly watching him like a threat. But something had changed. Because by the time he crossed 45th and Main, a dozen phones were already pointed at him. Not to accuse, to film, to witness. A teenage girl whispered, "That's the guy from the files." Her friend, "Did you see what he uploaded?" They tried to shut it down. It was working. The truth wasn't just a file anymore, it was moving, viral, fragmented, reposted faster than they could delete. Still, that didn't stop the hit squad. They came at 11:03 p.m. Unmarked vehicle, to agents, silencers, direct path. He didn't run. He waited. When they stepped out, guns already drawn, he raised both hands slow, deliberate. But then he spoke. "I've uploaded more than you think." The taller agent flinched. "There's a fail-safe. If I die, everything goes public. Video, orders, names. You pull that trigger, and the next 24 hours will break Washington." The other man hesitated, young, jaw tight, breathing shallow. He looked at the photo on the inside of his watch's daughter. Then he lowered his gun. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered. "Good," the CEO said softly. "Then don't." The van peeled away minutes later. No shots fired, no blood spilled. But something else cracked open. Inside his coat, his secure phone buzzed. "Message from Aaron, intercepted audio. Langford briefing Senate oversight off record." He tapped play. "No, the Meridian file isn't real. He fabricated it. Echo 9's unstable ways was. We gave him too much leash. This ends now." He smirked. Because now it was personal. You ever watch someone lie straight into a camera while you held the truth in your hands? Have you ever felt like justice is one whisper away but the world's too loud to hear it? If you know that feeling, drop one word below. Near. Because Langford was on TV now. Calm, polished, and absolutely full of it. But that was fine. Because the CEO had one final move left. And this time, it would be live. The studio lights were blinding. Langford sat beneath them, perfect, voice smooth, eyes rehearsed. "And let me be clear," he said into the camera. "The allegations are unfounded. The so-called Echo 9er has a history of delusion. This is not a whistleblower. This is a rogue operative." He smiled. Lied. But he didn't see the figure enter behind the glass wall. Didn't see the producer go pale. Didn't hear the intern gasp and drop her clipboard. Until it was too late. The CEO stepped into the shot. Calm, clean. Coat still damp from rain. Langford's mouth froze mid-sentence. "What the hell?" "Keep rolling," the CEO said to the cameraman. And somehow, he did. Langford stood. "This is a secure set. You called me a rogue," the CEO cut in. "You said I fabricated Meridian." Langford glanced off camera. "Cut the feed." "No," the CEO said. "They deserve this." He reached into his jacket, not for a weapon, but for a drive. Laid it gently on the table. "This contains the original footage of your Kandahar orders, the civilians, the classified intercepts, your voice authorizing cover-ups, every missing log restored." Langford paled. "You wouldn't." "I already did. This just proves it was always you." The room was dead silent, and the world was watching. On phones, in dorms, at bus stops. Because the live stream didn't cut, it multiplied. And in that moment, a single truth cut through 1,000 lies. Have you ever waited your whole life for one moment to speak without fear? To say, "I was right," and you knew it. If you've ever tasted the kind of justicino louder than a breath, but heavier than a war, drop one word below. Free. Because Langford was done. The truth was out. And as security finally moved to remove him, the CEO simply turned the camera, adjusted his collar, and walked away. Silent, but never invisible again.